Among the streets of central London is the world's only surviving home of one of America's most influential founding fathers. For nearly 16 years, Benjamin Franklin lived at 36 Craven Street. It was here that he worked as a diplomat, scientist, inventor, and political thinker, all while trying to preserve the relationship between Britain and the American colonies. But by the time he left London in 1775, that relationship had changed forever. This house became the backdrop to one of history's greatest political transformations. Today, visitors can still walk through many of the same rooms that Franklin occupied more than 250 years ago. To learn more about Franklin's time in London and the Benjamin Franklin House today, I spoke to their public engagement coordinator and curator, Megan King.
I think what makes the Benjamin Franklin House a really special part of Anglo-American history is the fact that we sort of consider ourselves the first de facto American embassy. When Benjamin Franklin first comes here in 1757, working as a colonial agent or liaison, during that time he is inviting all sorts of important movers and shakers of the day to spend time with him here at the house. So during his tenure at 36 Craven Street, he entertained the likes of William Pitt the Elder, following his time as Prime Minister, Thomas Paine, the well-known scientist Joseph Priestley. So all sorts of important folks came here. And they came here not just to discuss politics and current events, but all sorts of things that appealed to Franklin, particularly the arts and sciences as well. When visitors come to Benjamin Franklin House, they are walking on the same floors that he walked on. So I think the originality of the house, in addition to its history, is what makes it so unique and so special.
When Franklin returned to London in 1757, it wasn't to seek independence from Britain. In fact, it was to do quite the opposite. He arrived as a colonial representative, hoping to resolve disputes between Pennsylvania and Parliament. Over time, his responsibilities expanded, and he became one of the colony's principal voices in the United Kingdom.
This was actually Benjamin Franklin's sort of second home in London. He came here as a teenager, where he first kind of cut his teeth as a printer. So when he comes back here in 1757, at that point he has kind of become renowned, not just as a printer and a scientist, but as also sort of like a political advisor. So he comes over here to settle a taxation dispute that was taking place within the province of Pennsylvania. And then little by little, he's not advocating just for Pennsylvania. He starts advocating for Massachusetts, New Jersey, Georgia, and eventually he sort of becomes the go-to guy for colonial affairs abroad. And then once the imperial crisis kicks off, so thinking about the Stamp Act and the other pieces of parliamentary legislation that colonists seem to take issue with, he was the person over here who was sort of the mouthpiece for the colonies.
Franklin spent years trying to bridge two worlds. But while he remained in London, the relationship between Britain and the colonies steadily deteriorated. New taxes, political disagreements, and growing mistrust forced many, including Franklin, to reconsider whether reconciliation was still possible.
So during the years that Franklin lived here, the relationship between Great Britain and America changed drastically. When he first comes here in 1757, by and large, Americans are proud to be part of the British Empire. It's only sort of in the mid-1760s when new pieces of legislation are perceived to be infringing upon colonial rights that folks in America kind of reevaluate their stance within the British Empire. Here at Benjamin Franklin House, we usually say that Franklin came here a royalist and left a revolutionary. So when he first comes to London, he's very quickly charmed by the city. He loves being at the heart of the British Empire. And throughout his time here, he is a super respected member of the community. He becomes involved in a lot of different social circles based in the arts and sciences here in London. So yeah, I think he very quickly kind of feels at home here on Craven Street. Unlike some founding fathers who may have been a bit more apt to at least pursue the discussion of independence, Franklin wanted to hear nothing about it for the longest time. Realistically, it's when he has a major falling out with Parliament at the tail end of 1773, that he sort of thinks, you know what, I thought I was immune to a lot of these controversies, and I truly saw myself as an Anglo-American. But he's sort of forced to pause and to reflect, and it's around that time that he actually starts seeing himself as an American. His sort of, I guess, passion for the cause actually becomes so intense that he winds up cutting ties completely with his son, William, who remains loyalist.
Franklin's falling out with Parliament fundamentally changed his outlook on the independence issue. It all started due to the release of documents called the Hutchinson Papers.
The Hutchinson Letters affair involved Franklin releasing, whether it was intentionally or unintentionally, we don't know, but Franklin effectively released sensitive state information. He inherits, or happens upon, this set of correspondence. There's a lot within these letters to be picked apart, but the thing that Franklin really clings on to is a line from Thomas Hutchinson that says Americans should basically just accept the idea that they will only ever qualify for an abridgment of English liberty. So Franklin pulls this sentence out and he says, okay, great. So all this time I thought we were sort of working towards compromise and that we had a strong relationship and a long history that, meant that we would be willing to work together for centuries to come. But in reading this, he's like, oh, so even British officials in the colonies don't believe that Americans qualify sort of as full-blooded English people. So Franklin kind of sits on this information for a while, and ultimately he shares it with colleagues back in the colonies. These papers wind up printed in Boston newspapers. So when folks find out about this, there is pandemonium on both sides of the Atlantic. And ultimately, Franklin is dragged in front of Parliament. He has his character torn apart, and he's really, really, truly humiliated by this experience. So for him, that is really, truly the final straw. And it's 1775 when he actually departs from here. He does so sort of covertly just to avoid any to avoid being picked up on any charges that the Crown is trying to compile against him, and makes his way back to Philadelphia.
Although politics dominated Franklin's later years in London, life on Craven Street was about much more than diplomacy. The house became both a family home and a laboratory, a place where Franklin pursued scientific experiments, entertained guests, and continued to cultivate the curiosity that had made him famous around the world.
Daily life for Franklin here on Craven Street, I would say that no 2 days were probably really the same. He was involved in a lot of societies and a lot of influential social networks in this city. So he was certainly a man about town, but I also think he relished his time here in the house. He became incredibly close with the family who lived here, so much so that in his correspondence, he actually describes them as his second family or his English family, as opposed to his wife and daughter that were back in Philadelphia. So yeah, it was kind of a mixture. Some days he would have been here in the house, working on his experiments. Other days he would have been out in coffee shops and taverns of London, debating the issues of the day. But certainly Franklin was a man of a multitude of interests, and I think his lifestyle here in London really reflects that. A lot of our visitors really enjoy hearing the story about Franklin's air bathing. He would come out of bed in the mornings, walk over to the central window in his bedroom here, open it all the way up, and stand there completely naked. He believed that this was the best way to have a little bit of time for mindfulness, but also to sort of cleanse himself. A lot of folks, when they come and they view the room themselves, their first question is, wait, were the houses across the street built at that point? And they absolutely were. So we always joke that we wish there was like a community Facebook page for Georgian London where folks could be addressing the crazy neighbor who exposed himself for all the neighbors to see.
The Benjamin Franklin House tells more than the story of one extraordinary individual. It tells the story of two nations whose histories remain deeply intertwined, inviting visitors to explore the complexities of the Revolution through both British and American perspectives.
Here at the house, we do make it a point to tell both sides of the story. And I feel like Benjamin Franklin House is where English and colonial American perspectives intersect. So we are well aware that Franklin was not a saint. For us, it's more about sort of acting as stewards of his legacy rather than, putting him on a pedestal. I think it's really important to reflect on America's founding and to consider that our founding fathers had, a huge array of opinions. So I think for us it's important to kind of think about the fact that while they may have disagreed on different issues, there were a few core issues that they could really come together on. I think that, on the eve of America 250, that's something that we can all kind of embrace and think about as we try to find ways to work together moving forward.
Benjamin Franklin arrived in London believing that Britain and its American colonies shared a common future. He departed convinced that their paths would soon diverge. Yet, more than 250 years later, this house stands as a reminder that the story of American independence is also part of Britain's history. Within these walls, diplomacy, science, and revolutionary ideas came together, shaping events that would transform both nations. As we reflect on the 250th anniversary of the United States, Benjamin Franklin House is offering a unique opportunity to explore not just how America was founded, but how the shared histories of Britain and America continue to resonate today. To learn more about the Benjamin Franklin House or the America250 UK project, please visit our website at America250UK.org.